Some disappear by chance, others vanish by design. Across these stories, the twists reveal something deeper, a death that wasn't real, a life erased on purpose, a villain who slipped away, a truth that faded, and a disappearance that may not have been random at all. What's missing isn't just people, it's certainty, and until answers surface, these stories remain unfinished. The Hart family lived largely out of sight. They traveled often, avoided close scrutiny, and spoke openly about a belief system that shaped how they raised their children. To outsiders, it looked unconventional, but harmless. It wasn't until the family vanished all at once that authorities began to question how isolation, ideology, and control may have quietly taken hold. Jennifer Hart and Sarah Hart were a married couple who adopted 6 children: Sierra, 12, Abigail, 14, Jeremiah, 14, Devonte, 15, Hannah, 16, and Marcus, 19, over several years. The children came from different backgrounds and were adopted across multiple states. Publicly, the Harts presented themselves as devoted parents who promoted messages of equality, discipline, and family unity. On social media, the family appeared tightly bonded. Posts showed road trips, outdoor activities, and carefully curated moments of togetherness. Friends and followers often praised their parenting, while the family described their lifestyle as intentional and values-driven. Privately, however, concerns had been raised over time. Teachers, neighbors, and child welfare agencies in multiple states reported worrying patterns, including social isolation, strict control, and limited access to outside support. In early 2018, the Hart family stopped responding to messages from friends and acquaintances. Shortly afterward, authorities received a welfare check request at a home in Washington state where the family had been living. When officers arrived, the house appeared abandoned. Days later, a vehicle registered to the family was discovered at the base of a remote cliff in Northern California. All 8 members of the Hart family were missing. The discovery immediately triggered a large-scale investigation involving multiple agencies. As search efforts continued, it became clear that the family had been traveling extensively in the weeks prior, staying in campgrounds and remote locations. Their movements suggested deliberate withdrawal from normal routines. Investigators eventually concluded that the family's disappearance was not accidental. Evidence recovered at the scene indicated the vehicle had gone over the cliff intentionally. As authorities examined the family's history, they focused on the belief system that governed daily life inside the Hart household. The parents promoted strict obedience, separation from outside influences, and total family loyalty. Former acquaintances later said the children were increasingly isolated and discouraged from forming independent connections. While the family was not part of a formal organization, investigators determined that their worldview functioned much like a closed belief system, one that went largely unquestioned until it was too late. Extended relatives of the children expressed heartbreak and frustration, stating that repeated warnings had not been acted on quickly enough. Advocacy groups later cited the case as a painful example of how isolation can hide harm behind carefully managed appearances. The Hart children are now remembered not for the beliefs imposed on them, but for the lives they were never given the chance to fully live. What if isolation masked warning signs that should have demanded intervention sooner? How many concerns go unnoticed when belief systems are never questioned? Of 2018, a quiet neighborhood in northern Delhi awoke to a scene that stunned the nation. An entire family living under one roof had suddenly vanished from everyday life, leaving behind unanswered questions and a chilling silence. What investigators uncovered would point not to strangers or outside threats, but to a belief system that had quietly taken control inside the home. The Chundawat family lived in a 3-story house in Barari, a residential area of Delhi. The household consisted of 11 members spanning 3 generations, including grandparents, adult siblings, and children. The family ran a small grocery business, and plywood business was generally regarded as disciplined, close-knit, and deeply religious. Neighbors described the family as polite but private. Over time, they became increasingly inward-focused, relying on one another for guidance and rarely discussing personal matters with outsiders. Religious observance played a central role in daily life, and the family placed great importance on obedience, order, and tradition. On July 1, 2018, neighbors noticed that the family shop had not opened as usual. Concerned relatives entered the house and discovered a disturbing scene. The family was nowhere to be found in their normal routines, and the home appeared sealed off from the outside world. Inside, investigators found signs that suggested careful planning rather than chaos. Personal belongings were undisturbed, valuables were left behind, and the household appeared orderly. What stood out most was a series of handwritten notes found in the home, detailing strict instructions that governed the family's behavior and daily rituals. The family had effectively removed themselves from normal society, following rules that outsiders had never seen. As authorities examined the notes, they concluded that the family had been following a shared belief system centered on spiritual guidance and obedience. The writing suggested that one family member believed he was receiving instructions from a deceased relative whom he considered a guiding presence. Investigators determined that the family believed these rituals would lead to protection and salvation. The belief system had developed internally without oversight or intervention, functioning much like a closed group that discouraged questioning. There was no evidence of outside involvement or coercion. Instead, authorities concluded that the family's complete trust in these beliefs led them to isolate themselves from rational intervention, ultimately resulting in their disappearance from normal life as the community knew it. The discovery left extended relatives and neighbors grappling with disbelief. Many said they had noticed the family becoming more withdrawn, but never imagined the extent of the control exerted by their shared beliefs. In the aftermath, the case sparked nationwide conversations in India about mental health, unchecked authority within families, and how belief systems can quietly escalate when left unchallenged. The Burari family is remembered not only for the tragedy itself, but as a warning of how isolation can conceal danger behind routine appearances. What if earlier intervention had challenged the beliefs guiding the Burari family? How many warning signs go unnoticed when isolation is mistaken for devotion? In April 2011, a middle-class home in the western French city of Nantes became the focus of one of the country's most haunting family disappearances. Neighbors noticed silence behind closed shutters and unanswered messages. What began as concern over a family's sudden absence soon escalated into a case defined by secrecy, belief, and a disappearance that continues to defy resolution. Xavier Pierre-Marie Dupont de Ligonnès was born on January 9, 1961, in Versailles, into a traditionally Catholic family. His professional life was unstable, marked by a series of small business ventures with limited success, including a company called SELREF, whose purpose was vaguely defined. His wife, Agnès Hodanga, born November 9, 1962, worked at a Catholic school in Nantes and taught catechism. She was described as deeply religious, kind, but strict. Together, they raised 4 children: Arthur, Thomas, Anne, and Benoit, in a modest home on Boulevard Robert Schumann. Privately, Agnès had expressed concern about her marriage on online forums years earlier, noting troubling statements made by Xavier including remarks suggesting that a group death within the family would not be catastrophic. In early April 2011, the family abruptly vanished from daily life. The children stopped attending school, and Agnès ceased all communication. On April 13th, a neighbor alerted authorities after noticing the home's blinds had remained closed for days. A formal investigation began on April 19th. On April 21st, police searched the house. Beneath the patio, investigators discovered the bodies of Agnès and the 4 children, along with the family's 2 dogs. The remains were wrapped and concealed beneath the ground, suggesting careful preparation. Autopsies later revealed the deaths occurred between April 3rd and 5th. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès was not present and has never been found. Suspicion quickly focused on Xavier. Investigators determined that in the days leading up to the deaths, he had purchased cement, digging tools, and multiple bags of lime. He also owned a .22 caliber rifle, inherited from his father weeks earlier, had recently purchased ammunition, and had practiced shooting at a local range. Before the family vanished, Xavier told schools and friends conflicting stories, claiming he had been transferred to a job in Australia and, separately, that he was being placed in a witness protection program. Authorities later uncovered his involvement in fundamentalist Catholic online forums, where he discussed sacrifice, destiny, and persecution under multiple identities before being banned. Surveillance footage documented Xavier traveling alone through southern France. His movements ended near Roquebrune-sur-Argent on April 15, 2011. After that, he disappeared. Despite international alerts and reported sightings across Europe, no confirmed trace of Xavier has ever been found. For extended family members, grief has been compounded by the absence of final answers. The uncertainty surrounding Xavier's fate has left the case open-ended, continuing to haunt the public and raising broader questions about isolation, unchecked belief systems, and warning signs missed behind closed doors. Did isolation and belief convince one man that disappearance was the only solution? Is Xavier still alive, or did his story end where the trail went cold? On a winter morning in the mountains of Southern California, a teenage boy walked away from a place meant to help him. He left without witnesses, without a phone call, and without leaving behind anything that explained where he was going. Surrounded by forest and freezing temperatures, Daniel Ted Yuen disappeared, leaving behind questions that remain unanswered decades later. Daniel Ted Yuen was born on August 20th, 1987, in Edison, New Jersey. Described by friends and family as intelligent, gentle, and introspective, Daniel was not known to act impulsively. He enjoyed creative pursuits and was considered thoughtful beyond his years. In his sophomore year of high school, Daniel experienced a difficult breakup that deeply affected him emotionally. Concerned for his well-being, his parents, Lisa and Wayne Yuen, sought professional guidance and followed recommendations they believed were in Daniel's best interest.
Developed in 1967, CEDU helps young people reach their true potential, a potential they may not know they have. The CEDU family of services helps children help themselves.
In late January 2004, Daniel was enrolled at CEDU School, a private residential program located in Running Springs, California. The campus sat high in the San Bernardino Mountains, surrounded by dense forest and exposed to harsh winter conditions. On the morning of February 8, 2004, Daniel was last seen on campus at approximately 10:45 a.m. According to reports, he told staff he was going to buy cigarettes. threats. At some point afterward, he left the campus on foot. Daniel was not dressed for freezing temperatures and did not take supplies, money, or personal belongings. He never returned. When staff realized Daniel was missing, authorities were notified. Search efforts began quickly, involving law enforcement, volunteers, helicopters, and search dogs. The surrounding terrain, steep, wooded, and snow-covered, was thoroughly searched. Despite extensive efforts, no physical evidence was found. As the search produced no results, investigators considered multiple possibilities. One theory suggested that Daniel may have become lost in the wilderness and succumbed to the elements. Another explored whether he may have encountered someone after leaving campus. Questions also emerged about the environment Daniel had been living in. CEDU described itself as a therapeutic program for teens facing emotional challenges. However, over time, former students and advocacy groups raised concerns about strict rules, intense group sessions, and reliance on emotional pressure rather than traditional therapy. The program had historical connections to Synanon, a now-defunct organization that had drawn scrutiny for controversial practices. CEDU maintained that it operated independently and legitimately. Authorities have never confirmed whether the program played any role in Daniel's disappearance. For Daniel's family, the absence of answers has been devastating. As years passed without new leads, their focus shifted from searching terrain to searching for understanding. In 2005, CEDU filed for bankruptcy and closed its campuses amid growing scrutiny. While this development raised further questions, it did not bring closure to Daniel's case. More than 20 years later, his loved ones continue to hope someone may still come forward with information about Daniel's final hours. What if the environment meant to help Daniel instead deepened his isolation? And what answers disappeared the moment he walked into the cold? On a cold October evening in rural Michigan, two teenage girls stepped out for what should have been a short, familiar walk. The town was quiet, the route well known, and nothing suggested danger. When they failed to return home, concern spread quickly. More than 50 years later, their sudden disappearance remains one of Michigan's most enduring mysteries. Patricia Ann Patty Spencer was 16 years old, born on January 10, 1953. She was described as outgoing, responsible, and deeply connected to her family. Pamela Sue Pam Hobley was 15, born on May 24, 1954, and known for being kind, dependable, and thoughtful. The girls lived in Oscoda, Michigan, a small lakeside community along Lake Huron, where neighbors knew one another and serious crime was considered rare. Although Patricia and Pamela knew each other, they were not especially close friends. Still, both were familiar with the area and comfortable walking through town in the evening. Neither girl had a history of running away, and there were no known problems at home that might suggest they planned to disappear. On the evening of October 31st, 1969, Patricia and Pamela were last seen walking together away from Oscoda High School. Witnesses reported they appeared calm and unhurried, heading toward nearby streets that led toward the Lake Huron shoreline. The walk should have taken only minutes. When the girls did not return home, their families contacted police. Officers began searching almost immediately, joined by friends, neighbors, and volunteers. Despite extensive efforts, investigators found no signs of a struggle, no abandoned belongings, and no witnesses who could say where the girls had gone or who they might have encountered. It was as though they had simply vanished along a familiar route. As days passed without answers, the search expanded. Police examined nearby roads, wooded areas, shoreline paths, and sections of Lake Huron. Nearby properties were checked and tips were followed up on, but none produced solid leads. Investigators considered several possibilities. One theory explored whether the girls may have encountered someone they knew or trusted. Another questioned whether they may have accepted a ride, believing it to be harmless. Without physical evidence, authorities could neither confirm nor rule out foul play. What troubled investigators most was the complete lack of clues. In a populated area, on a route the girls knew well, Nothing was left behind to explain what happened. For the families of Patricia and Pamela, the uncertainty has been lifelong. As years passed, hope shifted from immediate rescue to the possibility of answers, any explanation that could bring understanding. Advances in forensic science brought renewed interest in the case over the decades, but without physical evidence, progress remained limited. No confirmed sightings were ever reported, no remains were found, no arrests were made. The town of Oscoda has changed since 1969, but the questions surrounding that night have never faded. What if Patricia and Pamela believed they were only moments away from safety? And what truth still lies hidden along a path that once felt familiar? On a late summer night in the historic city of Maastricht, an 18-year-old university student began a short, familiar ride home. The streets were quiet, the distance brief, and the destination close. When she never arrived, her disappearance became one of the Netherlands' most enduring mysteries, marked by missing time, missing evidence, and questions that lingered for decades. Tanja Afra Maria Groen was born on June 23, 1975. She was an intelligent, motivated young woman who had recently moved to Maastricht to begin her studies in psychology at Maastricht University. Friends and family described her as responsible, thoughtful, and excited about this new chapter of independence. As a first-year student, Tanja was adjusting to life away from home, attending classes, meeting new people, and taking part in student traditions common at Dutch universities. These activities were widely seen as a way for new students to socialize and settle into campus life. There was nothing in Tanja's background to suggest she planned to leave her life behind or put herself in danger. On the night of August 31st, 1993, Tanja attended a party organized by members of a student society, a legal and long-standing part of university culture in the Netherlands. According to witnesses, the gathering ended without incident. Sometime after midnight, shortly after 1 a.m., Tanja was seen leaving the party alone on her blue bicycle. She was heading toward her student housing, less than 2 kilometers away, a ride that should have taken only a few minutes. She never arrived. When Tanja failed to appear the next morning, friends quickly grew concerned and contacted authorities. Police began searching the route she was believed to have taken. Her bicycle was never found. No personal belongings were recovered. There were no confirmed sightings after she left the party. Search efforts expanded rapidly. Police examined roads, open fields, wooded areas, and nearby waterways. Divers searched canals and rivers. Posters were distributed throughout Maastricht and the surrounding regions. Investigators worked to reconstruct Tanja's final hours, focusing on who she spoke with at the party and how she left. Some witnesses were unable to recall details clearly, and no complete timeline beyond her departure could be confirmed. Over time, multiple theories were considered. One possibility was that Tanja encountered harm after leaving the party. Another suggested she may have accepted help or a ride, believing it to be safe. Some speculated she crossed paths with someone connected to the event. However, no physical evidence ever supported any single explanation. No organization or individual was officially charged or named as responsible. For Tanja's family, the years that followed were marked by uncertainty and quiet endurance. Periodic renewed searches and advances in forensic technology brought brief hope but few answers. In 2023, authorities confirmed that remains discovered years earlier belonged to Tanja Groen. While this finally confirmed her death, it did not explain how she died, where she had been, or what happened after she left the party that night. No arrests have been made, and the case remains unresolved. What if Tanja believed she was safe on a route she knew by heart? And what truth still lies hidden in the minutes between leaving the party and never arriving home? 1996, a warm spring night at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. 19-year-old Kristin Smart leaves a college party just a short walk from her dorm. She never makes it back. A missing student on a crowded campus. A walk that should have taken less than 10 minutes, and one student who was the last person seen with her, a person whose actions would be questioned for decades. Kristin Denise Smart was born on February 20th, 1977. Outgoing, athletic, and full of ambition, she dreamed of becoming an architect or even a professional athlete. By 1996, she was finishing her freshman year at Cal Poly, adjusting to campus life, new friends, and the independence of college. On the evening of May 24th, 1996, Kristin headed to an off-campus party at 135 Crandall Way. It was Memorial Day weekend. Many students were gone, but enough remained to fill the small house. Kristin arrived without her purse, wallet, or ID. Several witnesses later said she had been drinking and was unsteady by the end of the night. Around 2 a.m., Kristin was ready to head back to her dorm. Two students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, offered to walk with her, a short route that normally took less than 10 minutes. Along the way, another student, Paul Flores, joined the group. He walked closest to Kristin, supporting her at moments when she stumbled. As they neared the dorms, Cheryl and Tim split off. Kristin was left alone with Paul. He told them he would walk her the rest of the way to Muir Hall. It is the last time anyone other than Paul saw Kristin alive. The next morning, Kristin missed her surf class. Then she missed a planned weekend trip. And by Monday, when she didn't call home, something she always did, her parents felt a deep sense of worry. But campus police believed she had simply gone away for the holiday weekend. Almost 30 critical hours were lost. When investigators finally entered Kristin's room, her belongings were untouched. She had not slept in her bed. Search dogs brought to the dorms alerted near Paul Flores' room, further raising questions. But no physical evidence was recovered. Kristin was declared missing, and the case soon shifted into a homicide investigation. For years, Paul Flores remained the primary person of interest. He reportedly had an injury near his eye after the night Kristin vanished and gave inconsistent explanations for it. Witness statements described unusual behavior, and search dogs repeatedly showed reactions around locations connected to him. In 2021, Paul Flores was arrested and later convicted in connection with Kristin's disappearance. But despite the conviction, Kristin has never been found. Investigators long believed she may have been hidden somewhere on or near campus, possibly moved later. Multiple searches, excavations, and ground-penetrating radar efforts were conducted, but no confirmed remains were located. Some quietly questioned whether someone else encountered Kristin after the group separated, but no evidence has ever supported another suspect. Nearly 3 decades later, Kristin's family still waits for one thing: answers. If someone knows where she is, why has that information never been revealed? After all the searches, all the interviews, all the years, where is Kristin Smart? And what truly happened in those final minutes of that walk home? June 1988. A cold winter night in Perth, Western Australia. A 22-year-old university student leaves a staff celebration at one of the city's busiest hotels and vanishes without a trace 2 days later. Her car is found floating upside down in the ocean, headlights still glowing through the waves, keys still in the ignition, and mysterious items inside that only deepen the questions. No witnesses, no sign of an accident, and no explanation for how her vehicle ended up in the surf. More than 3 decades later, the disappearance of Julie Cutler remains one of Australia's most haunting mysteries. Julie Leanne Cutler was 22, petite, with dark brown hair and striking green eyes. Friends described her as artistic, outgoing, and thoughtful, someone who loved books, writing, and lively conversations. She lived in Fremantle with a flatmate, worked as a room attendant at the Parmelia Hilton Hotel, and studied English literature and theater arts at WAIT, now Curtin University. Julie was responsible, focused, and saving money to travel after graduation. She had plans, and she kept to them. Sunday, June 19th, 1988. Julie finished her shift at the Hilton and attended a staff awards night inside Juliana's nightclub. Nearly 200 co-workers were present. She wore a black evening dress with a high collar, gold shoulder buttons, and black patent leather shoes. Around 12:30 a.m., as the event began to wind down, a female colleague walked Julie to her car, a two-tone gray 1963 Fiat sedan parked in the staff car park. The colleague recalled seeing Julie bend into the front passenger seat before getting in. Moments later, Julie drove out of the car park, turning left onto Mounts Bay Road. This route would have taken her toward the city, across the river, and then home to Fremantle, but she never arrived. Julie didn't show up for her shift later that day, something completely out of character. Her flatmate reported her missing the next morning. Wednesday, June 22nd. Around 11:45 a.m., a swimmer spotted a vehicle floating upside down near the Groen at Cottesloe Beach. It was Julie's Fiat. The discovery stunned investigators. The car was half buried in sand, its headlights still on, and the keys still in the ignition. Inside were 4 champagne flutes from the Hilton and cigarette butts that weren't her usual brand. Julie's father, Roger, immediately dismissed the idea that she had driven into the water intentionally. The scene simply didn't make sense. There were no skid marks, no gouges in the road, no broken fencing, no footprints around the area. The beach gave nothing away. Some suggested Julie may have taken a wrong turn or become disoriented after the event. But experts noted the path into the water is difficult, and the lack of damage to the Fiat made an accidental drive into the surf seem unlikely. The champagne flutes, the unfamiliar cigarette butts, these items fueled suspicion. Did someone get into the car with Julie? Was she forced to drive somewhere she never intended to go? And did the car enter the ocean hours, or even days, after Julie disappeared? Investigators have long considered this possibility. Julie left the hotel late at night, alone, in a dimly lit area. Police have acknowledged the chance she encountered someone she knew, or someone watching. Given the time and location, the possibility of a random predator has also remained on the table, but with no evidence recovered from the vehicle and no trace found on the beach, nothing definitive has ever emerged. More than 35 years later, the mystery still lingers. Did Julie leave the hotel alone that night? Was someone waiting for her outside? And how did her car end up in the ocean, intact, headlights glowing beneath the surf? What do you believe truly happened? It was supposed to be a simple college trip. A model United Nations conference hosted at a luxury hotel in downtown Chicago. Hundreds of students, dozens of faculty members, a city lit up by traffic, noise, and security cameras on nearly every corner. In a place that never sleeps, no one expected anything unusual. But at 2:30 in the morning, a 19-year-old walked out of the Sheraton Chicago hotel and vanished within seconds. No struggle, no sound, no trace. How does someone disappear in the middle of a major city, surrounded by cameras and people? This is one of the most haunting urban vanishings of the 2000s. Jesse Warren Ross from Kansas City, Missouri, was a sophomore at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Friends described him as witty, warm, and full of energy, the kind of person everyone gravitated toward. He dreamed of working in media production and loved making short comedy videos with his friends. In November 2006, Jesse traveled with his university group to Chicago for a week-long Model Yuen conference. The event was held at the Sheraton Chicago Hotel and Towers, a massive, bustling hotel overlooking the Chicago River. On November 21st, around 2 a.m., Jesse and other students attended a late-night mock emergency meeting. The atmosphere was relaxed, students joking around, sipping sodas, unwinding after a long day of sessions. At 2:30 a.m., the meeting ended. Students began heading back to their rooms. Jesse walked into the hallway wearing jeans, a green long-sleeved shirt, and a black coat. He told friends he'd catch up with them shortly. Security footage captured him leaving the conference room, walking toward the hotel's exit, and that was the last confirmed sighting. He never returned to his room. He never contacted anyone. He never boarded the bus home. By 4 a.m., university staff realized something was wrong. Police were called soon after. Within hours, the search expanded across the hotel grounds, the Riverwalk, nearby streets, and the Chicago River itself. But there were no footprints, no witnesses, no signs of a struggle, and no surveillance footage showing where Jesse went next. It was as if he stepped into the early morning air and disappeared into it. Because the hotel sits directly beside the river, authorities first considered the possibility of an accidental fall. It was cold, dark, quiet, but multiple searches, sonar scans, divers, boats, found nothing. Despite strong currents, experts said some trace would likely appear. None ever did. At the time, several maintenance and construction areas surrounded the hotel. Investigators explored the theory that Jesse may have wandered into a poorly lit zone and suffered a fatal accident. Again, no evidence supported this. Police briefly considered whether Jesse chose to disappear, but he had no history of running away, no signs of distress, and he left behind all his belongings. His wallet, clothes, personal items. His family firmly rejects this theory. Some investigators believe foul play cannot be ruled out. Chicago's streets were not empty at that hour. If Jesse encountered the wrong person, it may have happened quickly, quietly, and outside the view of security cameras. Yet no one came forward. No one reported anything unusual. And to this day, not a single piece of physical evidence has ever been found. No phone, no clothing, no remains, nothing. How does a young man disappear in one of the most populated cities in America without leaving behind a trace? On a quiet stretch of England's northeast coast, a red canoe drifted back to shore without its owner. The North Sea was calm that morning, the sky unremarkable, the conditions ordinary, but by nightfall, one man was missing, and a family stood at the edge of a mystery that would linger for years, one that appeared at first to be a tragic accident claimed by the sea. John Darwin was in his early 50s, a former school teacher and prison officer living in Seaton Carew, County Durham. He was married to Anne Darwin, a medical receptionist, and together they had two adult sons, Mark and Anthony. To neighbors and colleagues, the Darwins appeared ordinary, quiet, private, and hardworking. Behind closed doors, however, the family was under growing financial strain, struggling with debt tied to property investments and a large mortgage. On March 21st, 2002, John Darwin was seen paddling his canoe, named Orca, out into the North Sea. When he failed to return home or report for work later that day, Anne contacted authorities. A major search operation followed. Coast Guard teams, helicopters, and rescue boats combed the water and shoreline. The next day, Darwin's paddle was recovered. Weeks later, pieces of his shattered canoe washed ashore. Despite extensive efforts, nobody was ever found. In April 2000, 2003, after more than a year without answers, a coroner issued an open verdict, and John Darwin was legally declared dead. His family mourned. His sons grieved a father they believed had drowned at sea. For years, the case appeared closed, a presumed maritime tragedy, and Darwin collected life insurance and pension payouts totaling hundreds of thousands of pounds. She publicly appealed for information, presenting herself as a grieving widow. Then came the twist. In December 2007, more than 5 years after his disappearance, John Darwin walked into a London police station and calmly told officers, "I think I'm a missing person." He claimed to have amnesia and no memory of the past 5 years. Investigators were already suspicious. Financial records raised red flags, and Anne's plans to move abroad drew scrutiny. The case unraveled completely when a photograph surfaced online showing John and Anne together in Panama, taken while John was supposedly dead. Police discovered that John Darwin had been the architect of his own disappearance. He had staged the canoe accident, then secretly lived in a bedsit next to the family home, accessed through a concealed passage hidden behind a wardrobe. Later, he traveled internationally using a false passport under the name of a deceased child. The death was deliberately staged, allowing insurance money to be fraudulently claimed over several years. False identities were created and used to obtain official documents, enabling international travel and the construction of a hidden life beyond public view. In this case, speculation eventually gave way to documented evidence, leaving no need for theories, only the unsettling reality of a disappearance that was carefully engineered from the start. The greatest damage was not financial, it was emotional. John and Anne's sons, who had mourned their father for years, learned they had unknowingly been part of a lie. In public statements, they described feeling deceived, manipulated, and deeply hurt. Their trust was shattered. The couple was convicted of fraud in 2008 and sentenced to more than 6 years in prison each. The stolen money was eventually recovered, but the family relationships were permanently altered. Even after release, reconciliation proved difficult, and long periods of estrangement followed. What does it do to a family when grief itself is built on deception? Can a disappearance still haunt others, even when the missing person was never truly gone? On a quiet summer evening in June 2009, a solitary traveler arrived in the coastal town of Sligo, Ireland. He carried modest luggage, spoke with a foreign accent, and appeared calm and self-contained. To locals, he seemed like just another visitor passing through, unnoticed, unremarkable, and unknowable. The man introduced himself as Peter Bergman. He claimed to be from Vienna, Austria, providing a specific street address at check-in. Later, authorities would discover the address did not exist. Physically, he appeared to be in his late 50s or early 60s. He was neatly dressed, well-groomed, and polite. Hotel staff recalled him as quiet and courteous, someone who avoided attention. He smoked frequently, spent long hours walking alone, and did not socialize. No confirmed records of Peter Bergman existed, not in Austria, not elsewhere in Europe, and not in international databases. No one could verify his past, family, or profession. Between June 12th and June 15th, Bergman's movements were captured on CCTV across Sligo. He repeatedly left his hotel carrying a purple plastic bag filled with unknown items. Each time he returned, the bag was empty. On June 13th, he visited the local post office and purchased several stamps and airmail stickers. It remains unknown whether he mailed anything, and if so, to whom. On June 15th, he checked out of the hotel shortly after noon. He stopped at the bus station cafe, ordered a cappuccino and a toasted sandwich, and sat alone. CCTV footage shows him carefully examining pieces of paper, folding and unfolding them before tearing them up and throwing them away. That afternoon, he boarded a bus to Ross's Point, a quiet beach outside town. Witnesses later reported seeing him walking calmly along the shoreline, greeting passers-by. His final confirmed sighting was late that night. Early the next morning, a body was discovered on Ross's Point Beach. The man was wearing swim trunks, with his clothing neatly arranged nearby. There was no identification, no wallet, no phone. Every clothing label had been removed. The post-mortem revealed advanced prostate cancer, bone tumors, and signs of past heart disease. Despite this, no medication, not even pain relief, was found in his system. The official cause of death was cardiac failure. There were no signs of violence or third-party involvement. Police conducted an extensive investigation. DNA, fingerprints, and dental records were checked internationally. No matches were found. No missing persons reports aligned with his description. Then a disturbing pattern emerged. A CCTV analysis showed Bergman consistently avoiding camera coverage. He disposed of items only in blind spots. Investigators concluded the purple bag had been used to systematically discard personal belongings across town. The false address, the cash payments, the removed labels, all pointed to intention. The twist: this was not an accidental or confused disappearance. Peter Bergman planned his disappearance perfectly. Theories that he was a spy or criminal were explored but never supported by evidence. The most widely accepted conclusion is that he was terminally ill and deliberately erased his identity before his death. Facts and theories were clearly separated. What remains undeniable is the level of planning. No family members ever came forward. No friends, no employer. No one claimed him. After 5 months, Peter Bergman was buried in an unmarked grave. Only a handful of people attended: police officers and cemetery staff. His true name remains unknown. What moments from his life did he choose not to leave behind? And who, somewhere in the world, never realized he was gone? In rural Washington state, surrounded by quiet roads and tall trees, stood a modest farmhouse that few people questioned. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary family home. Inside, it became the center of one of the most disturbing abuse cases in modern American history, a place where people entered and quietly vanished. Michelle Shelly Knotek lived in Raymond, Washington, with her husband David and their children. To neighbors, Shelly appeared controlling but unremarkable. She volunteered at school, maintained appearances, and projected authority. Behind closed doors, she ruled through fear. Those who came into her home, friends, relatives, boarders, often arrived during moments of vulnerability. Shelly offered help, shelter, or support. Once inside, control replaced kindness. Over time, several people connected to the Knotek household disappeared. In 1991, Kathy Loreno, a 36-year-old hairdresser, moved in after a falling out with her family. Over the next several years, witnesses later described Kathy being isolated, physically abused, deprived of food, and subjected to severe punishment. In 1994, Kathy vanished. The Knoteks told authorities she had run away with a truck driver and moved to California. No evidence supported this claim, but without a body, the story remained unchallenged. Soon after, Shane Watson, Shelly's teenage nephew, also disappeared. The Knoteks claimed he had gone to Alaska to work on a fishing boat. Years later, Ronald Woodworth, a local man who had moved into the home, became the next victim. Neighbors witnessed him being publicly humiliated and forced into dangerous physical punishments. In 2003, he, too, vanished. Each time, explanations were offered. Each time, no one pushed further, at least not right away. The truth began to surface when investigators re-examined Woodworth's disappearance. David Knotek eventually confessed, revealing a pattern of extreme abuse and violence inside the home. Investigators learned that Kathy Loreno had died after prolonged torture. Her body was burned, boat and her remains scattered. Shane Watson had been shot and cremated. Ronald Woodworth was buried on the property after being beaten and neglected. Shelly Knotek was charged with second-degree murder and manslaughter. David Knotek faced murder charges as well. The courtroom revelations were horrifying. Witnesses described starvation, beatings, forced labor, and deliberate humiliation. Prosecutors stated Shelly showed extreme indifference to human life. In 2004, Shelly Knotek was sentenced to 22 years in prison. For many, the case felt closed. Then came the twist. In November 2022, after serving approximately 18 years, Shelly Knotek was released from prison. The jaw-dropping twist. In a story defined by disappearances, the villain disappeared back into society, not the victims. No press conference, no public warning beyond required notifications. She simply walked out, alive and free, while her victims never got that chance. Shelly's surviving daughters have spoken publicly about the abuse they endured and witnessed. For them, the release reopened wounds that never truly healed. The families of the victims were left with permanent loss, no remains to bury, no full closure, and now the knowledge that the person responsible was no longer behind bars. David Knotek was released years earlier. The victims' names, however, remain tied forever to the house where they vanished. How does a community move forward when justice feels unfinished? And what does accountability mean when time runs out, but memory doesn't? In early October 2021, on a major Swedish highway, an unmarked police vehicle traveling at high speed crossed the median and collided with an oncoming truck. The crash ignited a fire so intense that 3 lives ended instantly. Inside the vehicle was a man who had lived under constant protection for over a decade, an artist whose name had long been tied to danger, controversy, and unresolved threats. Lars Vilks was born in Helsingborg, Sweden, in 1946. He earned a doctorate in art history and became a respected academic, teaching at prominent Scandinavian art institutions. Alongside his theoretical work, Vilks pursued conceptual art that often challenged authority and convention. In the 1980s, he constructed large sculptures from driftwood and stone inside a protected nature reserve, later declaring the site an independent micronation called Lidonia. His work blended art, protest, and institutional critique, often inviting legal disputes and public debate. Internationally, Vilks became best known after 2007, when his drawings depicting the Prophet Muhammad sparked global outrage. From that moment forward, his life fundamentally changed. Death threats followed. A bounty was placed on his head. Invitations vanished. Daily life became highly restricted. Vilks continued to speak and write, but always under police protection. For the final 14 years of his life, freedom was replaced by security protocols, guarded travel, and isolation. On October 3rd, 2021, Vilks attended a private dinner near Stockholm before beginning the return journey home. He traveled in an unmarked police vehicle, accompanied by 2 armed bodyguards, standard procedure due to long-standing threats. While driving along the E4 motorway near Markaryd, the vehicle suddenly swerved across the central barrier into oncoming traffic. A truck approaching at speed had no time to avoid impact. The collision caused an immediate fire. Vilks and both police officers were pronounced dead at the scene. The truck driver survived with injuries and was taken to hospital. Within hours, authorities announced an investigation. Swedish police stated there was no evidence of criminal intent. Early findings suggested the possibility of a tire blowout or sudden loss of vehicle control. Witnesses described the car moving at high speed before crossing lanes. Because no external interference was immediately immediately identified. The incident was treated as a traffic accident. Officials emphasized that there were no recent known threats against Vilks at the time of the crash. However, the broader context lingered quietly in the background. Vilks had lived under police protection for years due to credible threats, assassination plots, and previous attacks. His movements were normally planned and secured with exceptional care. Despite this, the investigation focused narrowly on mechanical causes. No public indication was given that alternative explanations were being explored. No extended inquiry into surrounding circumstances was announced. The case moved swiftly toward closure. The twist: Lars Vilks did not vanish physically, but the deeper pursuit of truth surrounding his death seemed to disappear. The investigation answered how the crash happened, but left little space to ask why scrutiny ended so quickly. Facts were documented, questions quietly dissolved. Vilks left behind friends, colleagues, and a cultural legacy marked by debate and division. Public reactions reflected shock, grief, and reflection on the price of artistic expression. The deaths of the two police officers added another layer of tragedy, drawing focus toward loss rather than inquiry. Official statements emphasized mourning and closure. For those who had followed Vilks's life under threat, the abrupt finality felt unsettling, not because of proven wrongdoing, but because of unresolved silence. What truths can quietly vanish when certainty arrives too quickly, and when danger surrounds a life for years, can closure come too easily? In the quiet border towns of northern Vermont, nights settle in early. Roads curve through farmland and forests where headlights are often the only movement after midnight. On one of those roads, just over a mile from a small restaurant, a single car would be found in a position so strange that it would leave investigators questioning whether what they were seeing was an accident or something carefully arranged. Brianna Alexandra Maitland was born on October 8, 1986, and raised on her family's farm near Montgomery, Vermont, close to the Canadian border. She grew up active and independent, trained extensively in jiu-jitsu, and was known by friends as determined and strong-willed. At 17, Brianna wanted more independence. She moved out of her parents' home, stayed with friends, worked multiple jobs, and enrolled in a GED program. Despite the instability that came with growing independence, she remained close to her family and spoke openly about future plans, including college. 3 weeks before her disappearance, Brianna was assaulted at a party by a former friend, resulting in a broken nose and concussion. Charges were filed, though investigators later stated the incident was not directly connected to what followed. On Friday, March 19, 2004, Brianna completed her final GED exam. She spent the afternoon with her mother celebrating, shopping, and running errands. At one point, Brianna briefly stepped outside a store. When she returned, her mother noticed she seemed shaken and distracted, though Brianna offered no explanation. That evening, Brianna drove to her job at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery. She completed her shift and clocked out around 11:20 p.m., telling coworkers she needed rest before working again the next morning. She was last seen leaving the restaurant alone, walking into the darkness of the parking lot. The following afternoon, a Vermont state trooper discovered Brianna's car along Route 118 in Richford. The Oldsmobile was backed hard into the side of an abandoned farmhouse known locally as the Dutchburn House. The impact had dislodged a piece of plywood which lay across the trunk. Inside the car were Brianna's paychecks. Outside were loose change, a water bottle, and an unsmoked cigarette. The doors were unlocked. Brianna was gone. Initially, the scene was treated as an abandoned vehicle, possibly a drunk driver who fled. The car was towed, and no immediate missing person report was filed. Days later, Brianna's parents learned the vehicle had already been recovered. Her ATM card, glasses, contact lens case, and migraine medication were still inside. As the investigation continued, law enforcement acknowledged the scene may have been staged to resemble an accident. For years, the discovery of Brianna's car was described as a strange but possibly random event. An accident, a misjudgment, a moment of teenage impulsivity, but the details refused to settle. Brianna was physically capable, trained in self-defense, and had plans for the following day. There was no evidence she intended to abandon her car, her belongings, or her life. Witnesses later reported seeing the vehicle late that night with its lights on, a turn signal blinking, and at least one person standing near the headlights. Another vehicle was seen speeding away nearby. Investigators later stated that foul play was likely. DNA was recovered from the car, and in 2022 authorities confirmed a match, though no identity was released. What once appeared chaotic began to look deliberate. For more than 2 decades, Brianna's parents have searched for answers. Leads came and went, anonymous tips, alleged sightings, and even a possible serial killer connection that was ultimately ruled out. In 2016, the abandoned farmhouse where Brianna's car was found burned down, erasing a physical landmark but not the mystery. Brianna Maitland has never been found. No arrests have been made. And the question remains, was this the result of chance or a moment carefully staged to look that way?